sometimes when you've never heard of a movie before and you just kind of stumble upon it, you think like, oh wow, this could be a hidden gem. I've reviewed movies like this. See Red Rock West as one such example. So I never heard of this movie before. Came out in 2014. I was like, oh yeah, this looks interesting. Man, there's a good movie in here somewhere, but this is Revenge of the Green Dragons. It is directed by Andrew Lau and Andrew Liu. It's also written by Andrew Liu and Michael Di Giacomo. Stars Justin Chon, Kevin Wu, Henry Shum Jr. and Ray Liotta. What is it about? Well, in the 80s and 90s, there are these Chinese gangs in New York. And they're violent, and they're vicious, and they're taking over the drug trade, the human trafficking, all that kind of stuff. And Revenge of the Green Dragons tells the story of, well, the Green Dragons and at least two people who join the Green Dragons. It's told all from one guy's perspective as well. But it's mostly like he starts at the same time in the gang as another guy. Now, something about this movie is it's not for everyone. It's going to make people uncomfortable. Some of the violence have made me uncomfortable as well. There's not a lot of that kind of brutal violence. Like, there's a lot of shock and awe at the start, and there's a couple more scenes like that that are very brutal and disturbing. But yeah, if you can get past those, you might be able to get through the rest of the movie. That's fine. But I have problems with this movie. I have a lot of problems. Too much of this movie is told via narration. I'm watching this movie thinking to myself, is this based on a book? It feels like this is based on a book. But then I looked it up. I do cursory research sometimes when I watch movies. And I found out this was based on a newspaper article, of all things. And it feels like it. Because it feels like the movie's, all the pieces of the newspaper article are in the movie. But what about all the between bits? What about all the character bits? What about, I don't know, all that stuff? Well, that's where the annoying narration comes in. Narration isn't always really needed. Just show us. You don't need to be like, oh, and then this happened, and this happened. I'm like, don't tell us that shit happened. Show us. Show us some character growth and all this kind of stuff. Instead of showing, they do show some character growth and things like that, but it ends up being kind of cliched and kind of run-of-the-mill crime movie. And maybe that's what crime is in real life. It's kind of cliched and all that kind of stuff. But this movie is by the two guys behind Infernal Affairs. Those three movies. I loved the first one. And then it was The Law of Diminishing Returns on subsequent releases. So I like the setting, it's different. Chinese gangs in New York, I really like that. There's a good movie in here. You can get rid of things like the narration. There's so much dramatic rock guitar music playing with slow motion. And then there's just like this really lame twist at the end. And I was just like, wait, isn't this based on a true story? What's this twist business? It's just... It's one of those movies that's just like, we're going to be really violent and edgy. And I'm like, what year was this made? Is this 2014? It feels like a 90s movie. It really does. It feels like a movie straight out of the mid-90s, like a 90s kind of gangster movie. It's kind of rushed. And nothing really gets a chance to breathe. And I thought it was just kind of boring in places. I didn't really get attached to anyone. And it was pretty cliched and stuff. Like, I know disturbing elements and things are in this movie, but it feels like it took all the highlights out of the book, or in this case, newspaper articles. So yeah, Revenge of the Green Dragons did not win me over. I was hoping to find a nice little gem that no one had ever heard of before, but instead, this movie by Andrew Lau and Andrew Liu is about as good as Infernal Affairs 2 or 3. I can't remember what scores I gave those, but they were low. So yeah, Revenge of the Green Dragons. I need to take my revenge on the Green Dragons for this shitty movie. Yeah. Dang. Don't bother.